Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Colton, and today I have a little bit of a treat for us all. So I'm gonna be photographing the candy art series as I have been a lot this year, but in today's video, I am not gonna shoot it with the Pentax 645D. I'm not gonna shoot it on any digital camera. In fact, I'm gonna be shooting it on medium format film. Now this is something I have wanted to do for a while with my Mamiya camera, but none of the lens I have up to this point have been able to get close enough and focus close enough to the subject. And so I went online and picked up an 80mm f4 macro lens for the Mamiya 645 Pro. That's what I've got here strapped onto the Mamiya, and that's gonna allow us to get close enough to the subject like we would with some of our digital macro lenses that we've been using. So I'm super excited for this. I'm gonna be shooting with Kodak Portra. I have some 160 and some 400, but I think I'm mainly gonna shoot here on the 160 and see how everything comes out. But I am super excited to finally be able to do this and be able to compare how do these images on film compare to images that I've shot digitally of this candy art series. So without further ado, let's go take some photos. All right, so we have shot an entire roll of film, 15 images, and before we shoot any more film, I'm gonna get this developed and scanned. I've shot on this camera with flash in the studio many times, so I'm sure everything is fine, but just in case we've done anything wrong, or in case this lens has any issues, this is the first time that we're shooting with it, probably just a good idea to get it developed, get it scanned, take a look at what it looks like, and make sure it's worth shooting any additional rolls. I just don't want to waste any rolls of film or any money. So let's get this developed and scanned and take a look at what we've got. All right, so we got the film back from the photo lab and I've put them into the computer, looked through them, picked ones that I thought were keepers, made some edits to them, probably could stand to do a few final tweaks to the color temperature, but otherwise I think they look really solid. And I wanted to talk about what I thought now looking at the final result and share some of those images with all of you. So the first one here that I wanted to take a look at is really representative of similar shots that I've done on digital with the Pentax 645D. And maybe I'll even kind of put them side by side here for you to see the film version versus the digital version, keeping in mind that these were not shot side by side. These were just done at separate times, and one of them happens to be kind of a similar perspective. But I will say I was very impressed with the film version. Again, keeping in mind probably a few tweaks further could be made to the file, but it scanned in really, really well, and it allowed quite a range of changes to be made to get it to look a little bit more even between shots and closer to the overall vibe of the series. The colors looked great. There are some tweaks there to just oversaturate them a little bit, but they looked really solid right out of the camera. Now, out of the 15 shots that I did, only 12 of them actually took, and that's because several shots the flash did not fire with the PC sync port coming out of the socket just a little bit, like half a millimeter or a millimeter out of there. So in the future, I'll either have to replace that cable if I can find one, or just use some gaffer's tape to sort of lock it in better. But even keeping in mind only getting those 12 shots, I still came up with some that I thought worked really well for the overall series. And I will also say, probably the biggest thing I noticed with these files is that some of them are razor sharp. Here's a really good example where focus is locked in, we're at critical sharpness, and we nailed it. It looks good. It looks comparable to the kind of resolution that we might see on one of the digital files. And that's good because it kind of maintains that consistency. And who doesn't want to get the best possible quality out of their film shot? But not every shot is like that. There are some here where it is still in focus, but it's maybe not at the perfect focus point. And because you're working with a very large format, but you're also doing it in a macro setting, you can slide out of focus by just the smallest margin and have it not be as sharp as it could have been, even though it is still in focus. And so, you know, I was shooting it handheld. There is also the element that, you know, you're focusing. I'm not a very steady person. I am kind of shaky. And so between the time that I nail that focus and then the fraction of a second it takes to then fire the shot, it's like by that point I might have moved forward by just a fraction of a millimeter and put it just out of focus a little bit. So I think a tripod could be helpful. Unfortunately, I don't have a tripod that can do like a 90-degree top-down angle, and so that might be something that I have to consider for the future. Definitely let me know if you know of a relatively cheap and stable way to shoot overhead 90-degree. I would love to know that. But I think also adding to that is the fact that the shutter sync speed for the Mamiya 645 Pro is 1/60th of a second. And so even though you're using flash and that does freeze the image, you are still shooting at 1/60th, and so handheld, if you're not holding it perfectly, that could potentially introduce just a little bit of movement there. Although I will say I think the bigger issue was just me moving slightly forward or slightly back before I actually hit the shutter speed. But even with that in mind, it's cool to see that I can get shots razor sharp if I maybe just put in the use of a tripod or just, kind of work the technique a little bit. But overall, outside of that, I think the shots look really wonderful. And I will say that it does open the floor to potentially use more film shots in the larger series, or even to maybe have a sub-series within the Candy Art series that's totally shot on film, knowing that now we can get the image and the voice and the vibe and the atmosphere of the shots to still feel like they fit within the larger scope of the overall series. And so that's really cool to see. So I probably will shoot some more film shots. I've definitely got some film in the fridge that's been begging to be shot, and so this would be a great opportunity to do so. I do want to show all of the images in the series that I shot here. There's about 5 or so. These are, of course, again, done on the Mamiya 645 Pro with the 80mm f4 macro lens and, of course, Kodak Portra 160. So here are those images uninterrupted. All right, so those are the shots that I selected as potential keepers. Let me know in the comments below which was your favorite, or just generally what you thought of seeing this series done on film. And if you liked the video, do give me a thumbs up. Also, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this or join me in my photographic journey. That's going to keep you in the know for when the next video drops. But for now, I'm Colton. I'll see you in the next one.